The space station Clivax Prime hung like a shining jewel above the blue clouds of a distant gas giant. From outside, it looked peaceful. Rings of light, glass domes, and golden banners that shimmered in the void. But inside, chaos was brewing. In the grand culinary hall of the Intergalactic Gourmet Council, hundreds of alien chefs moved across the vast room, their hands, tentacles, and metallic tools working in perfect rhythm. Bright lights flashed from energy stoves and vapor mixers. Machines hummed as ingredients from 50 different planets floated, in zero-gravity bubbles waiting to be shaped into art. And there, standing in the middle of this alien wonderland, was a single human. His name was Daniel Dax Romero, a chef from Earth. He wore a simple white apron, a stained shirt, and a smile that didn't quite hide his nerves. Around him, alien chefs whispered and chuckled. Some pointed their limbs at his table, others simply shook their heads in disbelief. "Look at the primitive," said a tall creature with silver skin and 6 eyes. He brought metal pans. A gelatinous being beside it wobbled and laughed. "No fusion pods? No neural taste modulator? How does he even cook?" Dax didn't reply. He just unpacked his old frying pan, a small portable stove, and a wooden spoon. The smell of his ingredients, garlic, onion, and a pouch of spices, began to spread faintly through the air. One of the alien assistants gagged. "By the stars, what is that odor?" Dax grinned. "That, my friend, is flavor." The room fell silent for a moment, then erupted in laughter. Even the floating judges, seated in their transparent pods above the kitchen floor, chuckled through their voice amplifiers. The chief judge, a feathered being named Tisar, spoke through the mic. "Chef Romero of Earth," Tisar said, his voice echoing. "You are the first human to ever enter this sacred competition. Are you sure your methods meet the culinary standards of the Federation?" Dax shrugged. "Guess we'll find out." Tisar's long feathers shimmered blue with amusement. "Very well. You have 1 standard cycle to prepare your dish for tasting. Begin." A loud chime echoed through the hall. The competition had started. The alien chefs moved fast, their machines glowing, slicing, and synthesizing. One built entire flavors through quantum aroma fields. Another used sonic waves to cook food without heat. The air filled with strange smells, sweet, metallic, and artificial. Dax's corner, however, was quiet except for the soft sizzle of oil. He chopped vegetables by hand, the sound of the knife against the board sharp and rhythmic. He dropped them into the pan, added a bit of oil, and soon a warm, rich smell filled his little space. Garlic browned, onions caramelized, and peppers hissed softly in the pan. Aliens passing by winced and coughed. "It's burning," one said, fanning its face. "Disgusting," said another. "He's ruining it." Dax laughed. "It's called browning. Makes it taste real." They didn't understand. To them, taste was measured by chemical balance and neural precision, not by emotion. Cooking was an exact science. Cold, perfect, lifeless. But Dax didn't cook like that. He cooked the way his grandmother had taught him, back in a small kitchen on Earth filled with laughter, noise, and the smell of something spicy always on the stove. He reached into his bag and pulled out a small tin box. Inside were packets of spices, red, yellow, brown, and green. The labels read, paprika, cumin, chili powder, coriander, cinnamon, and salt. Just reading the names made him smile. "Let's give them a taste of home," he whispered. Meanwhile, the judges were moving from station to station, examining dishes made from creatures and plants most humans had never seen. The alien chefs bowed proudly, presenting perfect spheres of taste that shimmered like jewels or evaporated into gas the moment they were touched. When the judges finally reached Dax's corner, their amusement returned. "What are you preparing, human?" asked Tazar, trying not to laugh. Dax stirred his pan. "Something simple, human chili stew, a recipe from old Earth." One of the assistant judges, a small robot with 12 lenses, scanned the pan. No molecular precision detected, temperature irregular, chemical ratios unbalanced. "Exactly," said Dax. "That's how it should be." The robot made a confused beep. "That does not compute." It's not supposed to, Dax replied. The smell from his pan grew stronger, spicy, warm, and alive. It filled the nearby air vents and spread across the hall. Some aliens covered their sensory organs, overwhelmed. Others found themselves curious. One even drifted closer, sniffing the air despite itself. "What is that?" asked a crystalline judge, tilting its faceted head. "Garlic, onion, chili, and memory," Dax said softly. "Memory?" Tassar repeated, raising an eyebrow. "We do not use emotion as an ingredient." Dax looked up at him and smiled. "Maybe that's what you're missing." The judge laughed again, but there was hesitation in it this time. The scent of Dax's cooking was different. It wasn't sterile or balanced. It carried something deeper, something alive. It reminded him of something he couldn't name, like warmth after cold or sunlight after storm. Hours passed. The other chefs presented their dishes first. One offered a cloud of vaporized delight that made the eater's brain release dopamine directly. Another served a plate that changed taste, depending on who looked at it. The judges praised them all with practiced smiles. Then it was Dax's turn. He placed a simple white bowl before the judges. Inside was a thick red stew with bits of vegetables, beans, and spices floating in a swirl of heat. Steam rose from it like a living thing. The sight drew confused looks from the audience. Tsar leaned forward. "It looks primitive." Dax shrugged. "That's what they said about fire once." The judge sighed. "Very well. Proceed." A mechanical spoon dipped into the stew, lifted, and hovered to Tassar's mouth. He hesitated only a moment before tasting it. The moment the stew touched his tongue, his feathers rippled in all directions. His 6 eyes widened. His breath caught. What is this sensation?" he whispered. The other judges tasted it. Each reacted differently. One gasped, another trembled, another laughed out loud without knowing why. For a few seconds, the grand hall was silent except for the crackle of Dax's still-burning stove. Then Tassar spoke softly, his voice shaking. "It is not balanced. It is not refined. But it feels alive." Dax smiled faintly. "That's the idea." Around the hall, the alien chefs whispered among themselves. Some refused to believe what they saw. Others demanded to taste it too. One brave alien took a spoonful, and tears welled up in its large, glassy eyes. "What is this feeling?" it asked, trembling. "It reminds me of home, but I do not have a home." Dax put down his spoon. "Maybe now you do," he said quietly. Tsar straightened, his feathers slowly settling. "Chef Romero," he said in a solemn tone, "this dish defies every known culinary law. It should not be possible." Dax met his gaze. "Neither should humans by your standards. But we're still here." For the first time that day, the grand hall was completely silent. The smell of spices hung heavy in the air, warm and comforting, like the memory of a meal shared long ago. And somewhere deep inside every alien heart, something small and bright flickered awake. Something that had been missing for a very long time. As the lights dimmed and the crowd stared at the humble human chef, one thing became clear. The galaxy had just tasted something it could never forget. The grand culinary hall of Clivax Station had returned to its usual hum, but the ripple of astonishment from Dax's first dish lingered like the aroma of his stew. Aliens whispered nervously among themselves, glancing at the human chef with a mixture of disbelief and curiosity. Some of them had never experienced anything like it, not in a million cycles of their culinary tournaments. Dax cleaned his station quietly, stacking pans and wiping off spilled oil with a calm focus. For him, cooking was never just about food, it was about connection. Every ingredient, every stir of the spoon carried a story. On Earth, cooking meant family, laughter, and the warmth of shared meals. On Clivax Station, he was about to show the galaxy what human memory and food could do. "Chef Romero," Tassar's voice came through the intercom again, softer this time, almost hesitant. "We invite you to prepare a second dish for a more detailed evaluation." Dax's lips curved into a small smile. He nodded. I thought you'd never ask. He started by selecting ingredients that were simple but full of character. From his Earth-provided pantry, he took ripe tomatoes, fragrant basil, fresh garlic, and olive oil. From the station's own stores, he added a few Martian-grown beans and a pinch of salt from the icy moons of Saturn. Nothing exotic, nothing synthesized, just natural flavors. The aliens watched with a mixture of amusement and suspicion as he peeled, chopped, and mixed. Their own cooking tools were glowing with laser precision, their machines buzzing and whirring. Dax, by contrast, used his hands, feeling the texture of the vegetables, smelling the aroma, and tasting constantly. His motions were rhythmic, almost meditative and strangely hypnotic to anyone watching. "What is he doing?" whispered one judge, a multi-limbed creature with emerald skin. "He does not measure. He does not calibrate. That is not science," muttered another. "It is chaos." Dax paused for a moment, inhaling the aroma of chopped garlic. "It's memory," he murmured to himself. "All food carries memory." He began to explain his dish as he cooked, more out of habit than performance. "On Earth," he said softly, stirring the mixture, "we eat not just to live. We eat to remember. Every meal is a story, every spice a memory. When I cook this stew, I remember my grandmother's kitchen. I remember laughter, rainy days, late nights, and family dinners." An alien judge tilted its head, fascinated. "Memory and food? Impossible," Dax smiled. "You think it's impossible because you removed that from your own meals. You eat for efficiency, for perfection. But taste is more than chemical balance. It is emotion, feeling." The judge's many eyes blinked slowly. He took a tentative step closer. Others followed. The faint smell of the stew, garlic, tomatoes, and spices began to fill the hall. There was something in it that the aliens could not measure, no matter how advanced their sensors were. It was something that spoke directly to their senses, bypassing logic. "Strange," one whispered. "I feel warmth." As Dax stirred, he added the special ingredients last, a blend of chili powder, cumin, and cinnamon, the combination that would evoke the deepest reaction. To humans, it was ordinary, everyday spices. But to these aliens, whose biology had no concept of emotion linked to flavor, it was like a shockwave through their senses. He carefully ladled the stew into simple bowls, each steaming with a faint golden hue from the spices. The bowls looked plain, almost modest compared to the glowing molecular creations on other tables. But Dax didn't need appearance. He knew the power was in the experience of tasting, not the optics. When the judges approached for the second evaluation, there was a strange tension in the air. The first tasting had left them shaken, unsure of what they had felt. Now they were wary, some almost defensive, as if preparing themselves against another wave of sensations they could not control. Dax held his hand out, offering the first bowl. "Taste it," he said. "Don't just analyze it. Let it speak." One by one, the judges hesitated, then dipped their mechanical spoons into the stew. The first taste caused small reactions. A slight shiver, a pause, a blink of surprise. By the time the last judge had tried, the entire panel was visibly affected. Tsar's feathers quivered. It is not perfect." "It is messy." "It should not feel like this," Dax shrugged. "It's not supposed to be perfect. It's supposed to be real." One judge whispered, almost to themselves, "It's like remembering someone I never knew." The room fell silent. Even the other competitors, busy with their own creations, glanced toward Dax's station. Something had happened here, something that no science or technology could replicate. Dax leaned back, watching quietly as the effect spread. Some judges closed their eyes, tasting again, savoring the warmth and complexity. Some began to murmur names of places and times they thought they had forgotten, memories they didn't know existed. The stew was not just food. It was a bridge connecting alien hearts to human emotion. The whispers reached the station's higher corridors, and soon assistants and spectators crowded near Dax's station. They wanted to know the secret. They wanted to understand how such a simple dish could create such overwhelming sensation. "What is in that stew?" asked one alien, curiosity overtaking suspicion. "Nothing you don't have already," Dax replied. "Just tomatoes, beans, garlic, and some spices from my home planet. The rest comes from here." He tapped his chest lightly. "The rest comes from heart and memory." Some laughed nervously, thinking he was joking. Others felt a strange tug of truth. They could not deny it. Even the strongest analytical mind on the station could not explain why a simple bowl of stew caused such emotional waves. Hours passed. The tasting ended, but the effect lingered. Judges whispered among themselves, comparing sensations. Aliens who had never cried now found tears streaking down their faces. Those who had never felt nostalgia now felt it sharply, as though Dax's simple cooking had unlocked something buried deep within them. Finally, Tassar spoke again, his voice steady but soft. "Chef Romero, your methods are unconventional. Your flavors are raw, chaotic, and imperfect. Yet, they evoke something we have long lost. Something we cannot replicate," Dax smiled. "Maybe that's why humans survive," he said quietly. "We are messy, emotional, unpredictable, but that's what makes us alive." The hall fell silent. Even the machines seemed still, as if waiting for what would come next. The other alien chefs glanced nervously at their own creations. Their meticulously engineered flavors seemed suddenly hollow in comparison. From somewhere in the crowd, a young apprentice whispered, "We thought we knew flavor, but we've never tasted life." Dax stirred the remaining stew, watching the steam rise. It smelled like home, like warmth, like memories. Somewhere far from Earth, on a station orbiting a gas giant, humans had proven something remarkable once again, not with weapons, not with machines, but with food, heart, and memory. By the end of the cycle, the judges had made their decision. Dax would move to the next round. Not because his stew was perfect, it was messy, unrefined, and full of simple flaws, but because it had changed them. It had reminded them of something they had forgotten, that food was more than taste. Food was emotion. Food was life. As the judges floated away, Dax packed his pans and spices. He had won respect, though not in the way he expected. The aliens would talk about this day for cycles, and they would never forget the taste of real human spice. He smiled quietly to himself. "This is just the beginning," he whispered. "They have no idea what humans can do with flavor." And somewhere in the shadows of the hall, alien chefs peeked at his spices, their curiosity growing. Perhaps they thought the galaxy had just been introduced to a power it had never known, the power of human cooking. The news of Chef Dax Romero's stew spread across Clivax Station like wildfire. Alien chefs whispered behind their claws, tentacles, and multi-eyed faces, unsure whether to admire or fear the human who had disrupted centuries of culinary tradition. No one had ever tasted anything like it before. No one could explain the strange feelings, the memories they didn't have, the warmth that filled their hearts with a simple bite of stew. But not everyone was impressed. Some judges still doubted. Some competitors sneered. One particularly proud chef, a tall crystalline being named Zirak, floated in front of Dax's station and glared. "This is absurd," Zirak said, its facets reflecting light like broken mirrors. "You call this cooking? This chaos? You are a joke in the highest tournament of the galaxy." Dax just smiled. "Maybe, but your dish didn't make anyone feel alive, did it?" Zirak bristled, offended. Its voice crackled through the hall. "Our techniques are perfect, precise, calculated. You have nothing but spices and luck." Dax leaned back, calm. "Luck isn't what makes something taste like home. Flavor isn't just molecules. It's memory, it's emotion. It's what makes a meal human." The hall filled with tension. Alien chefs and judges stopped their own work to watch the confrontation. Some whispered that this would be the duel of the cycle, the moment where Dax would either prove himself or be humiliated further. Tassar, the chief judge, floated down from his viewing pod. "Enough words," he said. "If you wish to challenge each other, do so in the proper format, a flavor duel. Both chefs prepare a dish. The judges taste side by side. Neural sensors measure emotional and sensory impact. The winner will be declared the more influential chef." Zirak's facets gleamed with contempt. "Prepare for defeat, human. This will prove your methods meaningless." Dax chuckled softly. "Let's see." The duel began. Zirak moved first, assembling a dish that glimmered with synthetic perfection. Colors shimmered unnaturally. Flavors were balanced to the exact molecular ratios. Its creation was precise, flawless, and at first glance intimidating. Dax, in contrast, unpacked his humble tools, a small pan, a wooden spoon, and his pouch of earth spices. He arranged his ingredients with care but without hurry. Tomatoes, beans, onions, garlic, and spices were laid out. His motions were simple but deliberate. "Primitive," whispered a judge. "It cannot compare." Dax ignored them. He focused on the sizzle, on the aroma, on the memories he poured into the pan. Cooking, he murmured, is not just about taste. It's about connection. As the duel progressed, Zirak's dish was completed. It floated to the tasting table, glimmering like a jewel, emitting precise chemical signals intended to evoke pleasure. The judges tasted it. At first they nodded in approval. The flavors were technically flawless. But then, nothing. No warmth, no nostalgia, no spark of life. Just perfection, cold and distant. Then it was Dax's turn. He ladled his stew into simple white bowls. Steam rose, carrying a fragrant mix of garlic, chili, and cumin. The aroma was warm, spicy, and inviting. Judges hesitated, unsure if this could possibly compare to Zirak's engineered masterpiece. The first spoonful changed everything. Tsar's feathers bristled as a wave of sensations hit him. Not just taste, but memories he didn't even know he had. A longing for laughter. A feeling of warmth. A sense of belonging. His neural sensors, designed to measure flavor impact, spiked beyond scale. The other judges were similarly affected. Some gasped. Some blinked in confusion. One, a small metallic being, fell to its knees, unable to process what it felt. The heat of the chili combined with the richness of the spices caused a cascade of reactions across their brains. Emotion intertwined with flavor in a way no machine could calculate. Even Zirak froze. Its crystalline facets reflected its shock. Impossible, it whispered. This it cannot be. How can flavor evoke life? Dax stirred the pan lightly, watching, calm. You forgot what food is for, he said softly. It's not just to please the tongue. It's to touch the heart. As more judges tasted the stew, the effects intensified. One crystalline chef began to cry, tears rolling down facets that had never cried before. A multi-limbed alien laughed uncontrollably, unable to contain the feelings bubbling inside. A gelatinous being shook as if electrified, overcome by sensations it could not name. The spectators gasped and whispers spread through the hall. Human. Magic. Impossible. It should not happen. Did flavor just change us? Dax continued cooking, sprinkling his final pinch of cinnamon and cumin. Every stir released waves of emotion into the room. The humans had a saying, spice brings life to food. For the first time, the galaxy was experiencing it firsthand. Tsar floated closer, feathers quivering. Chef Romero, he said in awe, you have done what no other chef has done. You have made us feel. Not taste, not analyze, but feel. How? Dax smiled gently. You've forgotten. You built perfection, but perfection is empty. Flavor without feeling is just chemicals. Food is alive only when it carries memory, hope, and heart. The duel ended not with applause, but with stunned silence. Zirak's perfect dish seemed meaningless now. The judges conferred, but even they could not measure the effect of Dax's humble stew. Every neural scan went off the charts. Every sensor was overloaded. Finally, Tsar made the declaration. Chef Romero wins the duel, not because your dish is perfect, but because it awakens what we had lost. The experience of life and food. The hall erupted, not in anger, but in shock. Alien chefs stared at Dax with a mixture of fear, respect, and fascination. Some approached him quietly, asking how he had done it. Others stepped back, realizing they were witnessing something greater than a mere competition. Even Zirak, humiliated but curious, floated silently to the side, watching. Dax had shattered centuries of culinary tradition in a single, simple gesture. As the dust settled, Dax cleaned his station. The smell of his stew lingered, warm and inviting. Judges whispered about it for hours afterward. Spectators wanted to learn the secret. Aliens who had scoffed at him now asked for advice, spice by spice. Dax packed his pans carefully, smiling to himself. They're starting to understand, he whispered. Flavor isn't just food. It's memory. It's life. And humans. We've got it in spades. In the shadows, Zirak approached hesitantly. Teach me, it said softly, facets glimmering. I want to understand, Dax grinned. Step 1, he said, handing it a wooden spoon, is to cook with heart. And somewhere in that crowded hall orbiting a distant gas giant, the galaxy realized something profound. Humans were not just another species. They were creators of life through flavor, capable of touching hearts in ways no machine, no chemical, no perfect recipe could replicate. The universe had tasted human ingenuity, and it would never be the same.